Thanks, everyone. A reminder to all of you who have yet to fill out the poll and conduct the survey, please do so now. The polling will be closed in about 10 minutes, so you'll find out the answer to the second poll question that we have of the day. And we will look at, now we're going to take a look at what marketers, advertisers, and publishers should be doing to prepare themselves for life after cookies. How will the changes affect data collection and measurability 2 years from now? Let's welcome Joe Nguyen, MD of Vion, and his panel of speakers.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. I'm calling in from Vietnam. As I think you know, I've been involved with AVIA before, and I'm still active in it. But I've gone to Vietnam to work for an OTT. So you know, I'm practicing what I preach. Welcome to the studio, Sunil and Laura. I wish I was there too. It's nice to be in person. We have Pieter from calling in from Belgium, and we have Amina calling in from London. With just following up here, right? So. What are the changes in data collection, unified ID? What are people going to do? So first off, Pieter is a business director from Broadpeak. Sunil Narayani is with Dentsu, Chief Product Officer APAC for Dentsu International. Laura, SVP APAC for Integral Ad Science, and Amina Begum is Director of Strategic Projects and Product Go-to-Market for Xandr. So welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for coming on to this last session of the day. So I'll start right in. So, you know, my first question is, you know, when hearing about, you know, life after cookie, it's really the death of the cookie, right? People have been saying the death of the cookie, the death of the cookie. So it, you know, it feels like, and we've been hearing for 2 years, right? And actually probably before then. And it feels like, you know, scaremongering. It feels like Y2K. If anyone is young enough to remember Y2K, when the clock flipped over to 2000. So is it a real issue for businesses, publishers, ecosystem, advertisers, or is it just like, it's just gonna blow over and it's no issue? Any thoughts? Who wants to jump in?
I can definitely go first. Hi, Joe. Thank you for having me.
Hey, Laura. Oh, yep.
Amina here. So what I would say on this topic is we know that third-party cookies will be deprecated. It's a matter of when, not if. Luckily, we've been given enough time to think about it and plan for this eventuality. What I would say is I don't think it's scaremongering. There are real consequences if businesses choose to ignore it. But having said that, because of the lead time that we have, the industry is really well served to collectively come together and innovate on solutions that will ultimately help the industry move forward. I think businesses need to get on board with the change, not be in denial about the change, and realize now that if they haven't started evaluating some of the solutions that have been coming out, some of the alternative solutions out there, which I think we'll talk about later today, that's when they essentially need to get on board with some of these solutions. I think there also needs to be an acceptance that the old way of doing things won't necessarily be the way that we do things in the future. And that's something that both advertisers, publishers, marketers, they all need to think about.
Well, Laura, you were about to speak up as well just now.
Yeah, so to backtrack, I don't think there's anything to worry about. I think we have plenty of time. If we look at a solution like Flock, which is still in the very early stages, I think they're coming out with the trial, or the trial ending in July of this year, and then it's still not a full rollout until the end of 2023. So we have plenty of time to look at potential solutions. I think we're also taking baby steps, but they're good steps. So it was mentioned some of the solutions. You know, we look at the likes of TTD. They've come out with a solution. There's plenty of other offerings around contextual targeting as well. So I feel like the industry is making baby steps, but great steps in the right direction. And I would say, you know, when we first started digital, it was, I guess, the sort of it went from crappy to creepy, and we've now gone too far down that creepy route. And maybe it's not a bad thing that we kind of come back and we look at context in the right place and making sure we're getting the right audience at the right time. So I think plenty of time to be had to ensure that we get the right solution. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so we're talking third-party cookies, right? So there's still going to be first-party cookies that a publisher needs to drop and able to understand visitors to their site. But if you will, the death of third-party cookies. So what do you think? I mean, agencies, you've been depending on that for many years for attribution, for tracking, for all that kind of stuff as well. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think it's an important question. Firstly, I wanted to tell you, Joe, that I was hoping that I could be in Vietnam. You wanted to be here, so but hopefully soon.
You're
but
welcome.
Yeah, I mean,
you're welcome. Waiting for you.
Back to the question. So I mean, look, I think we're at the center of the storm. To be honest, there's a lot going on the publisher side, on the tech side, on the clients wanting to know more, and certainly, as Laura said, there are plenty of solutions, which could be substitutes to the cookie world. And I think what we also hear now is that, the MAIDs or the device IDs will be deprecated as well, but that's not until 2024. So while we do have time, I think there is a need for urgency for people to come together and put scalable solutions. So what generally we've seen is we've tried and tested different solutions, call it universal IDs, contextual, some first-party solutions where a lot of MarTech is in play, where you are essentially leading on email and notifications and app marketing. But I guess a lot of these need to be enterprise, industrialized, and scaled. And it should work both for clients, advertisers, and the publishers, both from the point of revenue, yield management, and ease of operations. I guess for an agency, I'm speaking from where we sit, is that we, of course, look at testing and trialing, but it's important that these solutions fit into our own operating model without a lot of challenges. I think I think it is real. It's not the Y2K issue, but I think we still need to come to terms with getting this up and running, not just testing and trialing in small bits, but getting it up and running at scale, especially in Southeast Asia or APAC, where things are very, very fragmented.
Hey, Peter, you work with the publishers, right? Or more with the content owners. Are they concerned?
Technically speaking, yeah. Sorry. So technically speaking, we work more with TV service providers or pay TV operators. And I would say that the challenges that are caused by the crumbling of the third-party cookie is effectively an opportunity, a tremendous opportunity for TV service providers, and I would say even the broadcasters that are using the services of the TV service provider to regain their fair share of ad spend, in the sense that due to the fact that retargeting, because that's the key thing that will be challenged by the abandoning of third-party cookies or those platform identifiers, will go away, and that ad spend needs to find new avenues that give the expected yield. And we believe that especially by combining the ad tech that has been so powerful for buying but also selling ad inventory in the digital space, combined with that lean forward, very engaged audience that is available on TV, and by combining that into what is typically now called the connected TV ad space, is a tremendous opportunity. And I think we as an industry, and especially the attendees to this panel, should try to put in place the right set of services to make sure that advertisers do the bulk of the spend on their platforms, whether it is OTT or the more traditional pay TV operators.
Yeah, I want to go back to one of Sunil's point is that, about, the device IDs, right? So what we're talking about with cookies is essentially, at this point, web-based traffic, right? So PC web, mobile web, right? That's the first thing that goes, if you will. Now, media consumption or consumption for online in Asia is majority mobile based, right? So what are we losing? So there's the ad IDs, there's other things, and someone in the last panel they mentioned IP addresses, all that kind of stuff. What are we going to lose, and what can we use? I'll throw it at Amina right now. Any thoughts, Amina? Because you're the marketplace, you're the center of all of it.
Absolutely. So I think it's a great point about ad IDs and those kind of IDs. When we think about the deprecation of the third-party cookie, the reasoning behind it is essentially cross-site tracking. That's the sort of practice that the industry really wants to sort of eradicate. So anything that sort of plays with cross-site tracking, we can expect to sort of see eradicated at some point. I think we talked about the ad IDs, and we've seen companies like Apple be really strict and introduce measures like app tracking transparency to kind of address these issues. But I think the point worth making is we've kind of been working in cookieless environments anyway. If you think about Safari, if you think about Firefox, those are cookieless environments already. So I don't think it's a complete unknown that we're going into. And then obviously we're at a video conference. If you think about the CTV space, CTV does stand out because it obviously doesn't use cookies. I think it's a different challenge because you've got potentially multiple households and one login base, and that's a completely different challenge. So I think the point I would make here is, whilst we might be losing cookies on some environments, we don't necessarily have cookies in all environments. And I think there are different environments that we need to think about. And the solutions that we come up with need to address the industry holistically.
I think
Laura, sorry, go ahead, Sunil. Please go ahead. I have a question for Laura, but go ahead.
I think I'll just add on. I think with the new announcement from Google, where they're launching the privacy sandbox for Android, I think it's an important move and something that we should take in stride, because a lot of businesses in our part of the world are built mobile first. A lot of that is mobile commerce first, and essentially we've been looking at device IDs to be more persistent compared to cookies. So I think that's still a loss. But I mean, the point is that there always will be substitutes. We are working through universal IDs that play across device IDs and cookie IDs and create a more durable identifier which is more persistent. So I'm sure there will be ways out, but again, I think the loss of device IDs could be an important one. That's the question that needs to be answered by brands and businesses on. Then the importance of perhaps zero-party data that comes in, or perhaps the way in which consent is transferred across the ecosystem when certain ad IDs or apps are being asking for permissions. So I guess something that we'll have to work through. It's still early days. I mean, the latest what I know is it's still on the way till 2024, and I guess 2023 will be the test bed, similar to what we had seen with Flocks, which is now morphed into topics and in some shape and form.
Open question. You just mentioned the Google sandbox. Can we trust Google? Anyone want to take that? It's okay if we don't. I mean, but, that's the whole point, right? We're the open internet, right? And that's something that TrideDesk have always talked about. We're the open internet, and it is they have their own platforms. They have their own data. Facebook has their own data. It's the whole GAFA, environment, right? Google's doing something. Can we trust them?
Well,
Laura, you want to jump in here?
I was just going to say, I think we have to. I mean, in Southeast Asia today, we've done nothing but trust them for many years. We use them from ad serving to the programmatic solution. They've got a plethora of offerings, and they wouldn't be successful in this market if they didn't have something good to offer. So I think, of course, we have to trust them. Maybe it's making people a little uncomfortable that it's still really early days. But as we've said before, we have plenty of time. So I think, yes, we can trust. I think they're going to build a great solution. And at the end of the day, we have to remember this is also for the consumers. Consumers have been wanting privacy for a long time, and now the control is in their hands, and so we have to trust Google with that. And I think they've put the right foot forward in terms of making this decisioning. So yes, in short.
I'm just eager to add one point. I think alongside that, the ecosystem is just too reliant on Google as well. I mean, GAM is the largest SSP. Small publishers, like it or not, they can't have their own ecosystems or budgets to really put a better yield management, and they end up working with GAM in a lot of ways. I guess the question is should you waste this crisis that you have? Perhaps not. I mean, given all the things that the addressable community is doing, where while Google is going the topics route, there's a lot of universal ID play, and if that ecosystem is strong and scaled, I think you could have like a somewhat of a two-pronged approach, and essentially if that approach in the universal ID space can scale, it could benefit the entire programmatic community without Google.
I think just to add to that, we definitely at Xandr think of more than one solution as being the way to sort of address life after cookies. It's not just going to be the identifier type solution. So whether that's the universal ID, etc., it's going to be a range of other things. So whether that's contextual or data clean rooms or other things. And I think it's going to be figuring out a combination of some of these solutions together to really see what works together.
Yes, so that leads to my next question. Sorry, go ahead, Google.
No, I agree with Amina in the sense that there will be a plethora of IDs to be used, but linking it back to the connected TV space, which is on its own potentially, again, a small ecosystem where their own identifier can be used, and that combined with these data clean room services can offer to advertisers the required segmentation that they are after. And I think that's for this panel the biggest opportunity and almost a call to action to start to talk to each other and establish these kind of services.
So to Amina's point, is it going to be a multi-ID kind of conglomerate, or outside of GAFA, or is it going to be one major player like say Unified ID 2.0 or something, Universal ID?
I think my belief is that we'll have to go with a portfolio approach, and at some point in time you will have call it a UID 2.0 or the Pano ID from Lotame or the Fabric ID from Newstar ID5. There's so many of those. You will eventually have an interoperability between them, which is the key, because if these solutions can't scale, it just has no meaning from an advertiser standpoint, irrespective how sophisticated or not they are. So I feel it's going to be a portfolio approach and not one single silver bullet there.
Does that create more complexity? I mean, let's I'll address Laura, right? From a verification perspective and ad fraud and all that kind of stuff. Does that create more complexity for a client, for a platform?
Absolutely not. It doesn't create any complexity at all. I think it's the way that we have to go. So yeah, I don't think it creates complexity. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what tools agencies or advertisers are using to track verification or to look at a solution like contextual targeting in this conversation around the deprecation of third-party cookies. It doesn't matter what the technology is. Verification still has a place in that, and there's no challenge with it, no matter the technology that you choose, to the point that Sunil's made around the different options.
So as as people in the middle of the ecosystem, whether it's Xandr or whatever, you're going to have to connect to everything, right? And that's what I'm hearing, or anything that's relevant for that market, for that client, for that is that the consensus? It'll all be
at
there.
Least from a Broadpeak,
yeah.
At least from a Broadpeak perspective, we do the server-side ad insertion based on a ID, which is for us an opaque string, whatever it is. So from us, our perspective, it is quite transparent. Yes, indeed.
Right. I'll switch gears. Okay. Who was mentioned before? Data clean room. What is it? Why would an advertiser or publisher need them, or anybody need them? what does it mean? What's a data clean room? I know the term's been thrown around, and I want to make sure that the audience actually gets it from you guys. Anyone want to jump in on data clean room?
I can take a quick stab here. So
sure.
When we think about data clean rooms, they're really secure encrypted environments where advertisers and publishers can match user level data without sharing PII. The benefit of it being that it's obviously anonymized, and I'm obviously based in Europe. We care about privacy. We're sort of leading the way when it comes to privacy. So I think these solutions, at least on paper, sound really great. From our perspective, and I think this challenge sort of stands in the Asia region as well, is really thinking about how some of these solutions can be activated. I think, especially in Asia, I don't know how many of the data clean room solutions have boots on the ground, and you really need that to really kind of take these solutions off the ground. So I think the concepts are a great idea. I'm really excited to see how they evolve. I think the activation of these solutions is going to be interesting over the course of the next few months.
I think I'm just going to add the activation isn't that straightforward, especially in this part of the world. Now, and again, data clean room is not something that every advertiser would use. What I would give examples as, there's ads data hub from Google, or there is advanced analytics from Facebook, and then Amazon has one. And these are walled gardens that are offering their own secure environments in order for brands to bring in their first party and then match it within the ecosystem of Google or Facebook or others, and then find that right customer match for future advertising and marketing. So that's an important use case. And again, what Amina mentioned is the branch out is advertisers have their own first party, and they could actually pair this data with the publisher. Now, I guess the question is how much of a first-party data is available with the advertiser, which is still in journey, and then they're building that first party that's out there. Then having this technology to be understood, invested in, and then operated between the privacy rules that are changing. So I guess there are quite a few moving parts. Again, at the same time, it does seem to be a viable solution and something we will see more of in the future. But I guess as of today, there are few markets and some large publishers and advertisers that are doing it well, but it certainly is not mainstream today, that I can tell. I think the biggest use cases are within walled gardens, where you would push in paid media data into ADH and then do analysis like reach frequency at a user level, which is still very much practically doable. But I guess from a large scale, different entity sharing, I think we're still working through that.
So as we're moving to life after the cookie, does that mean an advertiser or advertisers start to build a CDP, customer data platform? They have to have it. They didn't have it before. Is that what the result should be if they're going to do best practices as an advertiser? Any thoughts?
Well, I think my point here will be that essentially what we're seeing is ad tech and martech converge at some point in time. I mean, you would speak about DMPs 3 years ago, and that was the way to go because it could immediately get you scale second-party, third-party data. But then with the deprecation of cookies, there's so much more focus on first-party and PII and customer CRMs, kind of maximizing the value of the leads that you have in CRMs from using emails and phone numbers of your customer and building a unique profile. So CDPs are now kind of mainstream. Again, I think it's a great piece of software to have if you're kind of utilizing it well. But again, it's not something that we today see in use for every client. What we do see is clients moving towards building their data strategy first, understanding what data do they have, how much of that first party is getting collected well, how much of that is compliant, and then yes, they do think about putting it into a CDP, which again becomes a big evaluation game on what martech stack are you on, because it shouldn't be seen as just an advertising and marketing play. It essentially is for the whole org at some point in time, because you have the single customer view of your customer. And I guess the key use cases that it perhaps differs from a DMP, which is more market advertising funnel acquisition led. The CDPs will focus more on retention, loyalty, and customer lifetime value. So that journey is still on, but I don't think it's a piece for every brand out there today. Again.
A general question: DMPs, they grew up data marketplaces. They grew up based on essentially third-party cookies. Are they going to disappear or get melded or morphed into something else? I don't know who's going to take that.
I can definitely take that. I think from our perspective, we're definitely seeing that data marketplaces are still continuing to be popular, and in fact, first-party data marketplaces are something that has really been driven forward in Europe. We've seen some of our clients, particularly in Europe, sort of starting to build first-party data marketplaces, and they've done really well. So I think what we will see is potentially data marketplaces turning from being third-party data-led to being first-party data-led, and that really is the key to getting advertisers on board, because that first-party data is unique and valuable and really speaks to actual consumers.
I think I'll just add on one more point. I think what we're seeing is certain DMPs evolve. I guess the biggest change that we will see in their offering is that they will use more durable identifiers. So far, it's all cookie and device IDs, but essentially think of Lotume's DMP that uses a Pano ID now, which essentially can be utilized in a second party or a third party environment. So I guess the change for DMPs will be evolving into having more durable identifiers to go with.
Yeah. And indeed, first-party data will rule.
Yeah, so that comes to my sort of, we haven't brought it up yet, but all this disparate sets of data, right? And there will be, your data clean rooms, you connect data up and everything, but there's still disparate sets of data. What role does machine learning, deep learning, all that kind of fun stuff, and who would be investing in that? Which part of the ecosystem? To try to tie together the audience, right? And because it's no longer direct, right? You don't have a cookie, so you don't have a direct thing anymore. You're going to have to estimate things. You know, probability, and you have to do, it's probabilistic versus deterministic, as we had before. So it is everyone in this ecosystem, all four of you in the different parts of the ecosystem have to invest in some sort of machine learning, deep learning to try to match data sets.
I think I can, sorry, please go.
No, you go.
I think I can speak to a small use case that we are currently running for one of our clients. I think essentially it's utilizing all the data that's coming into their CDP, and these are disparate data sets. Think of it as a lead and then a sales value or an ad exposure. The idea is that we use certain machine learning models to match this data together to kind of to have that one view essentially. So that's one of the use cases. The other use case again that we have in play is where you want to expand that valuable seed audience or a converted audience into a lookalike. And mind you, I think lookalike seems to be a very easy function to do, but that requires quite sophisticated modeling, and it's not that straightforward. So that's the beauty where the first-party seed audience comes in, but you also have a third-party data marketplace which has more scale, which is what you use then as a lookalike universe. And then again, it can get quite complicated, but that's where you also use a lot of machine learning to play with.
Look, I don't know if I've got too much to add there. I think Sunil covered it. But look, I think in short, where we are at the moment is everybody is sprinting to probably their own solution. And that means that everybody does have their own solution, whether it be contextual to looking at first-party data, whatever the solution may be, and Flock working around in the background. Everybody is using their own machine learning, I guess, to some degree. But what we're wanting to see, I guess, is that coming together and making it easier for agencies and advertisers. So I think that's the next evolution of where we need to take the technology. Looking to maybe companies like or businesses like the IAB Tech Lab, some of those companies to perhaps come on board and try and streamline this a little bit more. But at the moment, it is very sort of siloed in my experience.
Yeah, I mean, from a Xander perspective, what's your,
Yeah.
what are you guys looking in terms of machine learning? I
Yeah.
don't want to say the two, syllables because I hate that.
Absolutely. I think machine learning has a place in this. If you think about it, there's two ways to look at this. There's solutions that will come forward that are based on an ID, and anything that isn't based on an ID has some sort of machine learning behind it. I think a really simple example to use is the idea of frequency capping. So frequency capping today works on an ID. Moving forward, when that ID doesn't exist anymore, you're going to need some sort of seed data and then build on that data with some machine learning to be able to continue to be able to cap. Whether it's the exact frequency cap that we have today is another question, but there's clearly the application of machine learning in a situation like that. So I think it applies in a multitude of situations, from something as simple as that to far more complex scenarios.
Cool. We're down to the last tail end here. So I want to leave the audience with one quick question for you guys. And it's so is it going to get messier before it gets better?
In the essence of time, do we do a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Yeah, it's going to get a little messy. It's going to get a little messy, I think. Yeah.
I'd agree. I think we are all in the midst of it, so not out of the woods yet, but yeah, there's always hope.
Yeah, I agree. There's so much to test, so much out there right now. Without playing around with it, without testing it, without doing all of that stuff, it's not going to be clear what's going to win out. So I think, yeah, a little bit messier.
Pieter?
I will take it with a positive spin. It is an exciting time. And there is tremendous opportunity.
You're a tech guy. You love it to dive into that and play around with the tech. That's what it sounds like. Great. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much for your time. I'm going to do a quick, wrap up of what we talked about. One, it's not fake. It's happening, and we should all get ready for it. We regardless of whether we want to, we should trust Google and the other larger platforms that have tons of data already that we can hopefully take advantage of. Unified IDs, yes, there will be major players, but it will be a basket of IDs that people will use, different agencies, advertisers, and things will use to get a better idea of data. CDPs. Maybe not, depending probably on the advertiser and their willingness to invest. And it's going to get messier before it gets better, but it's an opportunity. All right. Exactly. Thank you very much. Have a good day, everyone. Everyone else out there, thank you very much for staying with us to the last session. Take care.